Storm the Dragon Legend is the new for 2023 steel coaster at TusenFryd in Norway. And this is a weird one. This is the first inverted coaster ever built by Gerstlauer. Not only that, but it's a multi-launch coaster with airtime and inversions. Is this prototype a good ride? Find out in this review of Storm. Parques Reunidos is an international theme park chain that owns TusenFryd. They acquired the park back in 2008, but they had not built a thrill coaster there since purchasing it. In recent years, Parques Reunidos has had an affinity for swing launch coasters, and it's not hard to see why. This type of coaster occupies a small footprint, and multiple passes extends the overall ride time for riders. Examples include Star Trek Operation Enterprise at Movie Park Germany, Capital Bullet Train at Motion Gate Dubai, Fury at Bobbejaanland, and Gold Rush at Slugharen. The latter is particularly noteworthy in this case. A planning application for TusenFryd's new coaster in early 2020 showed a layout nearly identical to Gold Rush, just with one less overbank. But there were two oddities to it. First, there were some trenches around the attraction, suggesting it may be an inverted coaster. Why else would you dig those for a sit-down coaster? Second, the train design was longer than any infinity coaster Gerstlauer had built to date, so enthusiasts were perplexed who the manufacturer could be. The ride was likely delayed a year or two due to COVID, but it was finally announced in late 2022. The new coaster would be a multi-launched inverted coaster from Gerstlauer. This would be a prototype. It was the company's first infinity inverted coaster. The ride would be called Storm the Dragon Legend, and would open in 2023 as part of an all-new themed area known as Dragonville. This medieval area would be located in the very back of TusenFryd. This location was shockingly close to a residential neighborhood, so I'm a bit surprised they got permission to build the coaster back there. But I get why they wanted to do so. They needed an attraction in the back of the park to pull guests there to balance out the crowds. And it was a rare piece of flat land for the park, which made it a desirable location for a new coaster. Dragonville looks pretty good, and Storm is the focal point of the land. The royal blue track looks great, and it's a wonderful backdrop seeing the train flipping about. But the presentation does not stop there. The ride is a beautiful entry archway with a wood-carved sign. Then the train looks fantastic as well. The lead car features a ferocious blue dragon on the front, giving me flashbacks to Universal's Dueling Dragons. The queue line offered great views of the coaster, but it did feel a bit plain and bare. You just had wooden fencing. Then the station felt a bit unfinished too, especially because there were visible wood planks and ladders lying about. So I wonder if they rushed the coaster open for the 2023 season and will finish the theming and appearance in 2024. This wouldn't be the first time we saw a European park do that, but if not, the coaster at least looks presentable. Like many swing launch coasters, Storm only runs one train, and that train holds just 16 riders. That is less than ideal for a new signature ride at a park that gets decent crowds like TusenFryd. The coaster does have fast dispatches at least, since you have just a lap bar with no secondary restraint. Just 2 hours after opening, the switchbacks towards the end of the queue line were full. I would estimate that they were about a 30 to 45 minute wait, but I cannot say for sure because I didn't wait in that. I used 3 different methods to avoid queuing for a long time at Storm. First, head here immediately after the park opens. Since it's in the back of the park, which is uphill no less, not many people make this their first stop, so you can get a few laps in with minimal to no wait. Second, head here towards the end of the day. Now this one is admittedly playing with fire though. TusenFryd will close queue lines early so the last train goes out right at park close, but the coaster had a modest 15-minute wait during the last half hour of the day. Third, use the single rider line. This is the best way to get on this coaster quickly. Even when this coaster has several switchbacks full of guests, not many people are using the single rider line, so usually this was just a 5-minute wait. Once you're at the end of the queue line, the park lets enough people into the station until the next train is filled. Most people would grab an unoccupied row, but from what I saw, the staff did allow people to wait an extra train for an already occupied row if you so wanted. It never got more than 2 groups deep, so I'm not sure if they'd ask you to move if too many people started to queue up for a specific row. After multiple rides on Storm, I thought the back row was best. While the main layout felt nearly identical in any row, the back was far better for the stall after the second launch. The sit-down Infinity Coaster trains have short and wide trains. The inverted Infinity Coaster instead has narrower and longer trains seating people in two abreast. Then the lap bars come overhead like those on Intamin's newer launch coasters, but the profiling is identical to the restraints on Infinity Coasters. They'll be pressed down snugly against your thighs, but they have nice contouring, and I love how open they leave you, especially on Invert. Once checked, the train begins with a modest first launch. It does not have much kick at all. The train then goes maybe 2 stories up the first dive loop. The start reminds me of Fury at Bobbionland. You then roll backwards for quite some time, wondering if the second launch will actually kick in, but it does once you reach the station, and this one actually has some oomph to it. You then roll backwards, all the way up the reverse Sidewinder. If you're in one of the back 2 rows, you are fully inverted and get some freaky hang time as you stall out. The seats towards the middle get some lift, just not nearly as extreme. Then the front row only gets a smidge of hang time because you're about 90 degrees to the ground. This element is the main reason I highly recommend the back rows because it truly is one of the best hang time moments in the world, especially with those minimalistic restraints. You then charge through the station, getting a noticeable speed boost from Launch 3. This launch has a good kick to it, and it'll press you against the seat back. This is where you hit the ride's max speed of 59 miles per hour or 95 kilometers per hour. While launches are becoming more and more commonplace, it's still pretty rare to get one on an inverted coaster, especially if you exclude the Intamin Impulse coasters. It's a fun sensation accelerating like that beneath the track. The first element is a giant dive loop. It stands 11 stories tall, making it the highest point of the ride, and I love how this is profiled. It's easily the best inversion on the ride. You don't start the flip until you're nearly at the apex, so you get sustained airtime in all rows. It's decent ejector towards the front as you crest over the top. Towards the back, it's more like floater, but it does last for the twist downwards. The subsequent pull-out blasts you with positive Gs, which is a delightful contrast from the negative Gs. The rapid switch in G-forces is impressive. Now this valley, like several on the ride, unfortunately has a very noticeable rattle. Gerstlauers are hit or miss in this department, and there's seemingly no rhyme or reason which of their rides will be smooth and which ones will not. Storm's rattle was not enough to cause me a headache, and the lack of over-the-shoulder restraints made it tolerable at least. But I am concerned a coaster this new already has a rattle like this, especially considering the spots with the rattle have high Gs as well. This could make the coaster difficult for some to ride as it ages. After the first inversion, you have a speed hill. This is a weird element to see on an invert, but it's incredible. The bunny hill delivers strong and sustained ejector airtime across the train. In terms of strength and speed, it reminds me of the bunny hill in the swing launch sequence on Pantheon and Tutatis. Immediately afterwards, you get hit with sharp positive Gs. Then you have another dive loop, but this one is shaped more conventionally. At the top, you get a little side-to-side action in the front rows and a little lift in the back, but the element is more notable for how you're pulled downwards. The valley has great positive Gs, and they're maintained into the third and final inversion, a reverse Sidewinder, which is basically a variant on a dive loop. I was graying out here on each ride. The Gs do let up slightly over the top, but they're reapplied as you're yanked downwards into the station. You then start to decelerate and gently roll up the initial dive loop, before crawling back into the station, ending the experience. The coaster is short, as it has just 1,181 feet, or 360 meters of track, but the swing launch sequence at the start makes it feel more fulfilling at least. Now, if you visit during special events, the park will sometimes operate Storm with a second lap. To my knowledge, this does not happen during public hours. This ride's pacing is quite good. You rapidly move from element to element, and it's forceful too. The way this coaster switches from negative Gs to positive Gs is quite intense. My one criticism with the layout itself is that it is a bit repetitive. 3 of the 4 elements are dive loops. Thankfully, each one does feel a bit different, but I still would have liked a bit more variety if possible. So what would I rate Storm? I would give this coaster a 7 out of 10. This is a good prototype. It does some things well. I love the intensity. The later launches are fun. Then you have a mix of strong airtime for an invert and powerful positive Gs. That being said, the ride is not perfect. While I like the train design, the ride does have the aforementioned rattle and vibration. Plus it is on the shorter side, and it is a bit repetitive. While Storm is not a world-class standout coaster, it is unique, and I'm glad this park finally got a new thrill coaster. And I do think it's now the best ride at this Norwegian theme park. So those are my thoughts on Storm the Dragon Legend of TusenFryd. What are your thoughts about this coaster? Do you like the intensity? Or do you have issues with the execution? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.